25, breaks a couple of tackles, and look at him go! He could go all the way! Touchdown!
Winning is not a sometimes. It's an always. Winning is a habit.
What's up, sports fans? Welcome back to an episode of Gut Check Podcast. Took a week off. We are back hanging in through this pandemic, ready to talk about some sports, more importantly, NFL, with my good friend and co-host, Seth Floyd Hansen. How you doing this morning, man?
Hanging by a thread, just hanging in there
thread.
through this this pandemic, dude, it's got me going crazy, a little stir crazy. So, but yeah.
But at least you have gotten into fashion, as I see the new clothes behind you. So.
Yeah, I'm starting a new passion of baby designing clothes. So I'm a baby designer, and
so posh.
Yeah. I mean, this is like high-end babies. We don't want those babies that don't have money. So
of course.
yeah. Exactly. So we're good. We're just spiking in Texas, that all those cases. So just trying to stay inside. Luckily, we're gonna be out of here tomorrow for a little bit. Go see my mom. So
that'll be good. Yeah, and as you say, you stay inside. I miss air conditioning so much out here in Washington. They just don't have it. And it's not like we get crazy heat waves or anything. It's only like it gets up to like 85 right now, right? But then that means your house is also 85 degrees inside. And
wait, they don't have air conditioning?
They just don't do it, man. They just don't. I mean,
like in your place where you're living, or all of Washington just doesn't do it. I'm assuming most people in homes and stuff have it.
Most like Western Washington homes don't have it. We thought we had it. We were all pumped. But then, because I have a thermostat and everything, and you can hit like cool, but it's just air that comes out. I don't know where the air comes from. It's not cold. It's just like a guy in the attic, like it just doesn't cool your house at all, man. It's crazy,
dude. Just another reason for me to hate Seattle. That's crazy, dude. I can't believe that. All I know is right now, I came. We were in Arizona a year ago, and now we're here. And I always thought Arizona would be the worst ever heat. Texas heat it's something else, dude. Yeah. It is just something else. So the idea of no air conditioning, I'm sweating just thinking about it. That is horrifying. I don't know how you guys survive.
Just hands in every direction. Yeah, it's madness. But we're doing all right. That's a first world problem, I suppose. But it's something to adjust to. So and just something else to drive me insane while I don't have sports to distract me. I'm watching reruns of cooking competitions on Food Network. It's just
I've done a little of that.
I need some competition. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel you. We're really into the Great British Baking Show, which is it's fantastic on Netflix, by the way. But you're right. That I need get those competitive juices going. So
yeah, maybe we'll do a baking episode of Gut Check Podcast one day.
That would be fun.
But we do have some big news in the NFL we haven't talked about. First and probably biggest, right? So we had the deadline on July 15th, just a couple days ago. As far as when teams and players could reach a long-term contract or just sign a franchise tag. So we'll get to some of those franchise tags in a minute. But even before that, someone who didn't need a contract but got one anyway, Patrick Mahomes, reigning Super Bowl MVP, gets a 10-year extension, upwards of $503 million. To lock him in for a total of 12 more years in Kansas City. Just an absurd contract in terms of numbers and years, the largest sports contract in history. So, nobody's going to argue he doesn't deserve it, but it is just some crazy numbers right there.
Sure. It's like a hockey contract.
Yeah.
Those hockey contracts used to be signed for 10, 12 years, for what I don't know what the reason was, but It's cool. It's cool. I mean, if you're a Chiefs fan, you feel good
Yeah.
because he's gonna be around forever. And guess what? I think at the end of this, he'll be like 34.
Mm-hmm.
But he's probably gonna sign another really big deal. Like he's one of those guys. If he doesn't, I know he's already been banged up a little bit, but he's one of those guys who, if he can avoid any big injuries, like he's gonna play till he doesn't want to play anymore, which could be 40. You know what I mean? Like whatever he wants. So like he could potentially sign another 5 to 6 year deal after. Yesterday I was with all the football coaches. We had some stuff, and we got into this topic of like quarterbacks and stuff like in the NFL. And like anyway, we were having to choose quarterbacks out of a list of quarterbacks. Anyway, I know that I'm supposed to hate the Chiefs because of how they broke my heart in February, but I'm pretty on the Mahomes train. And I in my head, like this is exactly what I would have tried to have done. Like lock him up for as long as possible, pay him the bag, which over the 12 years or 10 years, like the contract is going to be fairly reasonable. And near the middle of his contract, when the cap goes up and he's like 26, 27, you're probably going to feel like, oh, he's actually like,
maybe he's underpaid.
Maybe he's a little underpaid. Like it's really not that. I know 500 million really stands out, but that's what it's going to be. And I think Pat Mahomes, like at the end of this whole deal, his career in 15 years or whatever, you're going to talk about him as one of the top 5, top 3 quarterbacks. Like he just does things other people can't. And so I happy for the Chiefs. I'm unhappy for myself, but I'm happy for the Chiefs. So
yeah, at least, I mean, he is in the AFC. So you would only have to see him in the Super Bowl if it comes to that. So worst case, you're just in the Super Bowl. I think what's special about Mahomes, I mean, there's a long list of what's special about him, but what you want in your quarterback is that he's going to make other people around him and the team better. And I think that's what Mahomes does, right? Like they really haven't had a star running back. They've had sort of a running back by committee. They have Travis Kelce, who is the top 1 or 2 tight end in the league, depending if you're talking to a 49ers fan or not. And then like the other guys, I don't think they would be star wide receivers anywhere else. Tyreek Hill is the one you could have a debate about, but I think he's a speedy guy and he can get downfield and he can kind of get open. But part of that is Patrick Mahomes will buy time, find him down the field, and get the ball to him.
That's a good point.
I don't know that Hill is just a star on any team. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what you look for in a quarterback. And then to tie it to the Cowboys, right? Like on the other spectrum of that is Dak Prescott is really good, but he's not necessarily elevating the people around him. You sort of feel like the people around him are elevating him.
Yeah.
And to me, that's like the biggest disparity of who you want to pay the money to. The guy who's going to make your team better or the guy who just performs really well because you have a good team.
Sure. I mean, that's you hit on all points. You watch Mahomes and the way he connects downfield and just, I don't know, man, just everything about him. He's like really likable. Clearly he's really well liked by his teammates and it's a slam dunk. Him with Andy Reid is just like a slam dunk.
Yeah.
And if there's one thing I legitimately am happy about for him is Andy Reid. I'm happy for him for his, like he got a Super Bowl and now he's got his like quarterback who's just out of this world, you know. So good for him. Chiefs are going to be good for a long time, and you're setting up a good long rivalry between the Chiefs and the Ravens. I feel like if Lamar stays healthy, you know what I mean. You're going to have two faces of the AFC that'll be fun to watch now.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Andy Reid because huge fan of him as well. Now that he's not coaching the Eagles, but he's 62 years old now. Patrick Mahomes signed out to 2031, I think it was, something like that. How many of those years do you think Andy Reid is going to coach? And what sort of drop-off are we going to see, if any, once Andy Reid leaves? I mean, it'll be interesting to see how long he can stick around with Patrick Mahomes.
So I would think if the Chiefs win another Super Bowl in the next 2 or 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
I bet Andy would start to consider it.
Yeah.
Because he'd be like, man, I've got 2, I'm getting older. And then if he won another one, like in the next 2 or 3 years after that, I bet he'd be done. I bet he'd finish on top and he would just be
Yeah.
done. As far as the drop off, like the Chiefs and everyone's, if because Andy Reid's not going to get fired, he's going to retire. Yeah. I would imagine they would just promote someone within who runs the offense, or
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean, who is well versed in the offense and just keeps it rolling. So I wouldn't imagine a big drop off. This isn't like a Mike McCarthy getting fired in Green Bay and you have a whole new system or whatever. So,
Yeah.
I think there are some quarterbacks that are good because of the system.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are some quarterbacks who would just overcome all circumstances, like an Aaron Rodgers or whatever. And I think Mahomes for sure is a guy like that. So
Yeah. I think to that point, the Chiefs have done a really good job of supporting Patrick Mahomes and just supporting their stars with, talent around on offense, on defense, and the coaching staff. I mean, it's all buying into a system. So, yeah, I mean, I would like to think as well if Andy Reid retires, because like you said, yeah, it's his choice now when he wants to retire and step away. He's not going to get fired. And then he'll probably have a big say on who they bring in next just to support the team. And so would Patrick Mahomes. You would think it's sort of the opposite of the Green Bay situation where they will consult their quarterback on who they want to bring in to be the next coach.
Exactly. So. Yeah. No, I agree. It's Kansas City, man. They're doing things right now.
Yeah. So they're definitely going to be the team to beat. But interestingly enough, they are not the team that is favored to win every game next season. So that's actually Baltimore favored in all 16 of their games. I just want to bring that up a little bit because they do play Kansas City. The FPI, the football predicting, of course, anything happens, but Baltimore is actually going to beat Kansas City. And I think a large part of that is because the game is in Baltimore.
Sure. When we did our AFC North preview or whatever we did like a month ago, like, I don't know if you guys remember, I talked about, like, you look at Baltimore's schedule and it looks like a cakewalk. Like it's not tough outside of the Chiefs on their schedule, which is not easy, but they get them at home. And then you play Pittsburgh twice.
Yeah.
Who knows what they'll look like, probably better than they were. And then Cleveland twice, like at some point they have talent, like I don't know, but for the most part, like Baltimore, predicting them to go 14-2 or 15-1, like I wouldn't knock you for it at all, because you look at their schedule and if they look like they did last year, like they should be rolling teams. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I think it's the product right now of the AFC just being a 2-horse race.
Yeah.
And everyone else just trying to keep pace. I think the Chiefs and the Ravens didn't necessarily get better, but they're just both really good in the offseason. And then the next best team you could argue would be like the Texans, and they got worse. Patriots got worse without Tom Brady. Cam Newton obviously is a big pickup, but that's a different beast there. So yeah, it seems like without doing anything, the Ravens and the Chiefs just kind of bumped up and separated even more from the rest of the AFC.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely the opposite from the NFC, which is just feels like a heavyweight fight week in and week out. But it's yeah.
So the other big contract that got signed right before the deadline, or right at the deadline, staying in the AFC, Tennessee Titans inked Derrick Henry to a new deal, $50 million total, I believe it was. And this one's interesting because it's a running back getting a big contract. They already signed Tannehill to a pretty big contract for what he did really in just one season. So the debate going on right now is who's more important or who's more valuable to the Titans. Is it Ryan Tannehill or is it Derrick Henry?
Oof. Well, the problem with Tannehill is you're just not sure what you're going to get this next year. Like, you hope you get what you got, but we've seen guys catch fire before. I mean, it's the same system, the same team essentially, so you would assume he can come out and he can play well and do his thing. You don't know. But as far as value goes, like, who's more valuable? Like, I would think it's Tannehill because he's the quarterback. And look what like, they had Mariota in there, then they switched to Tannehill, and all of a sudden they're like a playoff team in the AFC Championship. So for sure it's Tannehill because of the position, but Derrick Henry is probably the heart of that team. You know, he's kind of the heart and soul of that team. That fan base loves Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
Led the league in rushing, and I think it was a good deal. Like, they didn't break the bank for him, but gave him money he deserved. I appreciate Derrick Henry like accepting the value of his position and everything. You know what I mean? And he just took and got paid. Like, understands, like, look, I'm making millions and millions of dollars. Like, this is a good deal, and so. That was pretty big for them, and it's a 4-year deal. So it's sad to say, it'll probably be like, he'd probably play out those 4 years, and then after that, he's probably going to be on the tail end of things. Yeah. And so he's going to get paid for these next 4 years. And Tennessee has a good team. Like, they're not a bad team, especially in a weak AFC. Like, I don't expect them to be going anywhere if they can keep running the ball. So,
yeah, I think just inherently quarterback is always more valuable. It's really the most valuable position on any team. But most important is Derrick Henry, because, I mean, just looking at last season, they were 13-0 when he rushed for over 100 yards, 3-0 in the playoffs when he was over 100 yards. And so I think if Derrick Henry was slacking in a game or just wasn't having his game, I don't know that Ryan Tannehill could pick that up and overcome it as easily as the opposite. If Tannehill was struggling, Derrick Henry could just take over a game if he was just running over people and getting over 100 yards. And I think that's kind of the interesting dynamic, really, between a quarterback and a running back. If a running back is having a great game, they control the clock, they control the ball, you're getting first downs, you're moving it, you're probably scoring. But if a quarterback is just struggling and a running back struggling, like, you guys have nothing, right? So, yeah, we've seen Tannehill in the league for a while. He's had some good seasons. He's had some bad seasons. Definitely, it seemed like an upgrade from Mariota, really, for whatever reason. I think teams just couldn't stop his play action and couldn't both respect Tannehill as a passer and the run with Henry as much as they could with Mariota. So it's a good combo. They might have overpaid Tannehill, but I don't know what other option they really had.
You weren't gonna, no. I think Tannehill. Look, like, he might just be starting his career now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there was so much dysfunction in Miami, and he's not a Patrick Mahomes where he can overcome like all that dysfunction and staff turnover and changing of offenses and whatever else. But you put him with a good running back, a good defense, and an organization that knows what they're doing, like he could thrive. And maybe this is what you're going to see for Tannehill for, I don't know how long his deal was, but for the duration of his contract, like this, you could get a playoff starting quarterback. You know what I mean? Like, he could be like a Jimmy Garoppolo type of quarterback where he's got the right things around him and he's good enough to take your team as far as they need to go. So Tennessee, like, it's funny because, like, I think people forget they were in the AFC Championship and they were like leading in that game for a bit, and they get so much disrespect. Like, I know you consciously aren't disrespecting them, but even just a few minutes ago, you were like, you've got the Chiefs and the Ravens, and then who's number 3? I don't know, the Texans. They got worse, but like, we don't even talk about Tennessee, how they are. Yeah. So I don't know, like, sneaky, watch them, like, keep an eye on them and what they're going to be able to do this year, because they're for sure going to be in the mix of things.
Yeah. I guess it's funny you call me out on that. It seemed like such a fluke that they got to the championship because they got in from a wild card and like they got hot at the right time. But no, you're absolutely right. I mean, I don't think there's that many flukes in football, right? You can't really be a fluke for 3 games into the playoffs.
Right.
And they beat some talented teams. I think what Mike Vrabel's doing there makes a lot of sense. You play good defense and you run the ball.
Right.
Try to get turnovers and try not to turn the ball over. That's what every team ultimately wants to do.
Sure.
And he just has a good system to do it.
Sure. And they take on the anybody who watched Hard Knocks, the Texans Hard Knocks in 2014, I think it was, and you see Mike Vrabel and his personality, and like you can see that Titan team taking on their head coach's personality, that just hard-nosed, tough-nosed kind of football, and it's working for him.
Yeah, definitely. So the last thing I think we could kind of talk about as far as contracts go before getting into training camp, just one last bit on Dak Prescott. So the deadline came and went. He had signed the franchise tag about a month ago, but this was the deadline on Wednesday to get a long-term contract. Didn't happen, so he's playing the 2020 season on a $31.4 million one-year contract. Not chump change by any means.
Right.
And I think what's so interesting is like as soon as I saw Patrick Mahomes' contract, I just thought if Dak doesn't sign a long-term deal, he's just betting on himself right now, because now you have the market's been reset again for Patrick Mahomes. If Dak Prescott goes out and wins a Super Bowl, you're not Patrick Mahomes, but you just did what he did. Now there's that new standard, there's that new benchmark. Maybe that, I think that's why it's so great. Like he just waited for the market to reset again, and if he goes out and performs, he has a higher benchmark to at least get closer to. I don't know that he's going to try to get a 10, 12-year deal or whatever, but you see, that larger number. But then on the other hand, if he goes out and he flounders on 1 year, they kick him to the curb and they run with Andy Dalton.
Yeah. It's crazy living here in Texas and in the Dallas area. Like the more people you talk to, the more people are just like ready to kick Prescott to the curb. It's not everybody, but there's more people that are like, I will gladly roll with Andy Dalton at $4 million a year or whatever it is. Yeah. And they like Dak. I think everyone recognizes that Dak is a better quarterback than Andy Dalton, but the kind of dysfunction that's surrounding it, and just, I don't know, the uncertainty surrounding it is what most fans out here are over. I've seen a lot of people saying like, oh, Dak must feel disrespected because of the Patrick Mahomes deal, and the Chiefs just so willingly gave him this massive deal. Like if Dak can't recognize the difference between him and Pat Mahomes, which he might not be able to, when you're a athlete and you constantly have to be in that mind frame of like, I'm the best and I'm gonna beat everybody, like that's a good thing. You want to have that mindset. Like maybe you do get blinded, but like it's not even close. You know what I mean? Like, and people who are like, wow, I would feel disrespected if I was Dak. Like you're dumb. Like you got to see the ditch. You obviously like need to watch more Chiefs games, because it's not even close. Like the comparison between the two. So
no, I mean definitely a difference. I couldn't imagine him or anyone around him really feeling disrespect. I think if anything, it's got to be motivation to say, because I think going into this year, if he's going to sign a franchise tag, he's betting on himself. He says, all right, you haven't seen enough of me. I'll play 1 year with a lot of money. I'll go out and I'll ball it up. I'll do my best. Win a playoff game to get to the Super Bowl, whatever. And then someone's going to pay me after that, right? Whether I hope it's the Cowboys, if not, someone's going to pay me. And now he just has this new benchmark to reach. That's the way I see it.
Even if if he wants to stay in Dallas, then sure, like he better play well if he wants to get that contract. But even if he didn't play well and the Cowboys moved on, like he's going to get paid somewhere. Someone, there's just such a premium on quarterbacks.
Yeah, he will, and that's what we saw with Kirk Cousins and the Washington NFL team. He had 2 years on the franchise tag, making close to like 60, 70 million over that time, and then went in straight to an $84 million fully guaranteed contract with the Minnesota Vikings. So it can play out. It can work. It just hopefully he plays well enough and the Cowboys keep him around.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, all right, but that's a lot of lead up into the NFL training camp. That's right around the corner. So we're in middle July. Teams are going to start reporting 28 July. Right now, the NFL is adamant that everything is going on schedule. They said it back in March. Everything's going to be as planned. They've gone through the draft, the preseason, or not the preseason, the offseason with free agency, everything on schedule. And now we're coming up to training camp. A lot of uncertainty still in the air. Really, the only thing that's changed so far is they've canceled the Pro Football Hall of Fame game, and then they canceled 2 preseason games. So there are only going to be 2 preseason games, and then no travel for training camp. So everyone's going to be at their own facilities, as well as no more inter-squad scrimmages, which we saw a lot of in training camp just for I mean, you know how it is playing football. You get tired of hitting your own guys after a while. You just want to hit somebody else, and it's a different atmosphere. But they're getting rid of that, still trying to go on schedule for training camp. And rightfully so, there's still a lot of questions between the NFL and the NFLPA. Just kind of button heads is what testing is going to look like, what the results are going to look like, how they're going to get them back, what happens if someone tests positive. I mean, of all the sports you play, NFL and football is the hardest one to socially distance. I mean, as much as you want to try to work it out, you guys are, I mean, you're tackling, you're blocking. I mean, everything you do, every play ends with 2 opposing players like in close contact, right? So it's going to be interesting how they sort of implement some of these practices.
Well, not only that, but the amount of players. There's no team. There's no sport that has this many players per team, and so it's going to be a logistical nightmare trying to follow all these protocols and trying to do the best you can. I saw a report that said they would if you test positive for corona, that you're on the disabled list, or not it wouldn't be the IR, but you're on the disabled list or whatever for 3 weeks, because there's like that 14-day timeline or whatever. So I don't know, man. That's can you imagine like playing and Patrick Mahomes gets put on the DL for 3 weeks because he might feel fine, he might feel 100%, but if he tests positive, he has to go on the thing. So this season is gonna, I'm not gonna say like it's not gonna get out of hand, but it's gonna be different, and it's gonna leave a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, mine included. Like I mean, as football, I'll watch it, I'll honor the results, but it'll always just be like, man, that season where people were just dropping left and right because of this pandemic. So
yeah, and it's going to be tough because nobody knows really what the state of our country is going to look like come September, October, November.
Especially in November, yeah.
Yeah, so things can change. It can spike again. We can get worse. I mean, we haven't really gotten better, and so it's just it's hard for the NFL to say we're just going to keep pushing through. We're going to drive through when you don't know if college is going to play. You don't know if states are even going to be opened and what that's going to look like. And these teams are going to travel, right? So they have their private jets. They're not going through crowded airports or anything like that. But they're going from one state to the next. Yeah, like you said, it's a 53-man roster. You have a dozen coaches on top of that. You have dozens of staff along with that. And just thinking about all the stuff that goes on the sidelines, right? Like all the Gatorade cups, Gatorade bottles, food in hotels, and like there's so much logistics that goes on behind. But you have to concern yourself of maybe not just the players who are getting infected, but the staff that we wouldn't even see and probably wouldn't even hear reports about that kind of get involved and could be affected as well.
Yeah. And they're gonna get it. Like someone's gonna get it.
Yeah.
There's no way that doesn't happen. And so everyone's just got to know, like, we want football this year. This is the process. This is what is going to take place. I loved the idea. I don't know if we talked about this the other day, but they were talking about having fans sign waivers and just let them if they want to come into the stands. Yeah. And like, I don't think it's the worst idea, if I'm being honest. I mean, it's probably not a great idea from spreading the disease standpoint, but I also am like a big proponent in like you have if you understand the risks and you legally sign something off, like I think you have the right to do that. And I don't think that's a terrible idea from that standpoint. Think of the money the NFL would save, which it's for sure a money thing. They're going to save,
of course,
or recoup a bunch of money if they're able to do that. But I thought that was interesting, and I was actually surprised other sports hadn't even entertained it, or that thought hadn't come up before. But anyway.
Yeah, well, it looks like NASCAR is actually going to have fans in the stands for their Bristol race, or they actually did. They had 25,000 people in a 35,000 capacity track. So, yeah, fans are willing to go and risk it. I think they were supposed to wear masks. So the images I saw, it was kind of hit or miss on if they were wearing a mask the whole time. Sort of spread out, right? They weren't, on top of each other. Mm-hmm. But 25,000 out of 35,000, I mean, that's over 50% capacity. Mm-hmm. So you can't spread out, too much. And that is an outdoor. I mean, it's a racetrack, so it's, pretty completely outdoors. But yeah, it'll be interesting if the NFL does adopt that policy, that if states are going to allow people to attend with masks and socially distanced and whatever, if the NFL does that. Yeah, I get your point. If you sign a waiver, the risks, you're okay with it. Where I hesitate is just like if someone I don't even know went to that, got infected, and then now they're walking around and they don't really know it. It's like, to me, the biggest fear isn't necessarily me getting it, but it's me passing it to someone who couldn't handle, who is compromised and all that kind of stuff, right? So that's what I'm concerned about. But yeah, really just I don't know. There's a lot of questions about the NFL. I'm excited if it picks up, but I can certainly get too if these guys want to sit out for this year. You say, I don't need the money. I have young kids at home. I got older parents around. I don't feel safe, and they just take a year out. I think it'll be interesting to see how the NFL wants to handle that aspect.
Yeah, and I bet you'll see that. I bet you'll see that with just the younger like generations, like mm-hmm. You know what I mean, that have come up, and you see people retiring because of concussions and things like that. Like it's no longer a football or die type of like mentality, which mm-hmm. is fine. Like that's healthy if you you got to have other priorities in your life as well. And so I'm positive you're going to see some people who are like, nah, I'm going to sit this one out. If you follow like on like JJ Watt posted something mm-hmm. the other day about what the players know, what the players don't know, what they're trying to work out with the players union. So like there are still some real uncertainties, and you're 10 days away from when everyone's supposed to go to camp, 11 days away. Yeah. So you're going to, I'm sure you're going to get some guys that get cold feet and they're just like, it probably isn't worth it. I think I'm okay. Like, I'm just going to sit out. Now, I don't know if it'll be any like star players, but, mm-hmm. but I bet you'll see some guys who are like impact players in the league that start at least a couple that are going to just say that they're going to take the year off. And then, yeah, like, I don't know what you do then. Is it like, how do you blame a guy for that? You know what I mean? Yeah. But at the same time, like he's under contract. Like, I don't know. Mm-hmm. It becomes a really tough situation.
Yeah, in what you're seeing right now is a pretty bad look from the WNBA. Their reigning MVP and member of the championship Washington Mystics, Elena Della, Lyme disease, and her doctors are saying she is for COVID-19. So she applied for a medical exemption for the WNBA season that starts later next week as well. And the WNBA denied her that exemption, saying that she isn't high risk. And like, I mean, that's just a bad look.
It's a terrible look.
However you want to shake it. So now she has that decision. She makes comfortable money. I don't know what her contract is, but it's not NBA money.
Sure.
She should be paid like LeBron James, but there just isn't that money in the WNBA, right? So now she has that risk. Like, do I play and risk, catching this and having serious consequences, or just not get a paycheck for a year?
Yeah.
So it looks bad, and it'll be interesting if the NBA or the NFL, is going to have a similar kind of system.
So it looks bad, but what other choice does the WNBA have? Your like best players just gonna sit out? I mean, I don't mean to say that like lightly or insensitive. Like I'm just thinking like pure business standpoint. They're just like, we struggle to get viewers as it is, and then our reigning MVP isn't gonna come back. Like I get from that point, but it obviously is a very insensitive look that probably will hurt their brand, which is already like pretty weak as it is, So
Yeah, well, and that's the thing too. You hope, right? Like these doctors are supposed to be independent. Sure, they're hired by the WNBA, but they also represent the Players Association. So hopefully these doctors are completely independent and aren't influenced by that decision by saying, "Oh, that's going to hurt like how many people watch." But that's always been the case, especially with the NFL and these concussion doctors. It's like, are these doctors really independent, or are they just trying to get their players back on the field so they can win more games? So that's, if the NFL adopts that sort of policy to have doctors look at exemptions, look at reasons why people want to back out, and give them, the benefit of the doubt, give them a year's worth of salary if they sit out for a legitimate reason. Will they try to factor in, well, I'm not going to let Patrick Mahomes sit out, but, maybe I'll let this 53rd guy on the roster, sit out. Like it's going to be interesting, and we better hope there's some integrity in that system.
The thing about the NFL is that what's so great about the NFL, and this is why they're so much more popular and do better in the ratings and stuff than like the NBA, is the NFL would certainly survive without some of its stars. Like Patrick Mahomes, if he chose to sit out, that was terrible English. If he chose
You're not an
weird.
Teacher.
Yeah, that was weird. Chose to sit out, like I don't think the viewership would drop, if at all. You know what I mean? Like your product is the competition on the field. Your product is, we're trying to get into the playoffs. How are we going to win a playoff game? Like that's what people are there. And if you have Patrick Mahomes on your team, you're pumped. But people are so ride or die with their team. Whereas the NBA is so player driven. It's so like, I like a player more than I like a team. And I think the NFL would be just fine. And that's like the brilliance. It's not even strategically anything the NFL has done. They've just built the brand really well that I'm sure they'll be able to survive. When inevitably there's a starting quarterback who gets it and has to miss a few games, like they're gonna survive. They're built to weather this storm more than any other sport from a ratings perspective.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right. There's team pride versus player pride. But the one position that would hurt the most would be quarterback. I mean, we've seen it just when a star quarterback goes down, that team is kind of just written off.
Yeah.
You have your diehard fans that are still watching them and rooting for them, but it's just a different look when their quarterback is out. We saw it, Tom Brady goes down and Matt Castle's in, and all sorts of things. Andrew Luck goes out, like you can name it, right? So it would be interesting if one of those quarterbacks. I don't think any starting quarterback would opt out for any reason that I could think of. Like a guy like Drew Brees, I think would be the top of the list. I think could possibly do it, but then I would just think, man, he should probably just retire then.
Well, that's what that's what his thought would be. Yeah. Like, this isn't worth it. Yeah. I could just be in the booth anyway. Like
Yeah.
So, did you see?
I don't see any like 25-year-old, 26-year-old quarterback, stepping out.
Sure. Did you see Greg Olson signed a deal with Fox.
Yes, I did see
He's
that.
He's pulling the Drew Brees, so it's pretty funny. But that was expected. I think he's already done some commentary work. So
yeah, so I know that just makes you feel better because he was the best tight end in the NFC West. So.
Yeah, it goes Greg Olsen, and then who's Luke Wilson, Greg Hollister, whatever that guy's name is, and then George Kittle probably. So I was literally, if I've ever almost intentionally broke my phone, it was when I read that tweet from that Seahawks fan. So,
and that guy just tweeted it knowing exactly what it was going to do to 49er fans, and it worked. It worked 100%.
Yeah, well, he's still a dummy, so
we won't share his Twitter just because you don't want to give him the clout from our 13 listeners. So.
Exactly. He doesn't deserve it. Yeah.
All right. So ultimately, just a lot of questions about the NFL training camp. It's right around the corner. So fans, if you're holding on for some live sports, some action, football is coming. We'll see what happens with professional sports here. And in the meantime, MLS is back. Tournament is on right now. So guys, if you're any sort of soccer fan or football fan, I recommend giving it a shot. Like, now's the time. You don't have other distractions. Just try to get into I guarantee the city you live in or nearby has some sort of soccer team that you can start rooting for. And it's pretty fun to watch. Like, they're on throughout the day. I say give it a chance, and let's see if soccer can get a foothold here in America as well. Yeah,
the MLS has 26 teams now, which is when we were growing up, it was like 10 or 8 or something, and it's grown a ton. I watched them. I told you I watched them the other day, and it's good soccer. Like, it's not, you don't feel like you're watching a minor league team or anything. Like, it's good soccer, and so it's something to get us by right now. So check it out.
Yeah. So when you're not listening to old episodes of Gut Check Podcast, check out the MLS.
Do it.
And then in 1 week, baseball kicks off as well. And then the week after that, NBA is back as well. So we'll be back next week talking some NBA, getting you guys ready for that. And then we'll probably hit on some of the opening day stuff as well in baseball. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sticking with us for this week. We'll see you guys next time.
Sounds good.
Out.